I'm going to compare your putting stroke technique to Tiger Woods. Tiger is known as one of the best putters in the world and maybe of all time. First, let's look at his setup from a face-on position. He is using a reverse overlap grip, which is the most common grip on tour for those players who use a conventional putter. His elbows are slightly bent into his sides, and he has formed the classic wide position with his forearms and shaft of his putter. His stance is not too wide or too narrow, but comfortably under his hips. From a down-the-line view, you can see how his arms are slightly bent and his legs are slightly flexed. He has tilted his spine so that his eyes are right over the ball. Now let's look at his putting stroke. Tiger takes the putter back with his forearms, maintaining the form of the letter Y. On this stroke, the backswing stopped just outside his back foot. There is no sway or movement in his hips or legs, but strokes the ball with a very stable body. On this stroke, his follow-through was slightly further than his backswing. He has a smooth acceleration through the ball. The engine of his stroke is made with a gentle rocking of the shoulders. He starts with his shoulder line where the red line is. As he goes back, his shoulders will rock with his left shoulder going down and his right shoulder going up. So it's now lined up with the blue line. Then as he goes forward, he rocks his shoulders and his left shoulder goes up and right shoulder down. So it's lined up with the yellow line. So this rocking of the shoulders creates this swing. It's also important to observe that when Tiger strokes the putter, he's not just swinging the putter head, but he's swinging the handle also. His hands will swing back into that yellow circle, shaft on the red line. As he follows through, he will follow through with his hands and handle, matching the shaft to the red line on the other side. His hands are swinging past his left leg. So he's not cupping or flipping the back of his left wrist. One of the most important fundamentals that Tiger does is he keeps his eyes down to the ground until his stroke is completely finished. As Tiger takes the putter back, his eyes are down. As he hits the ball, his eyes are down. His eyes are still down. His eyes are still down. His eyes are still down. His eyes are down even after the ball rolls out of the pitcher. It's only when his putter comes to a complete stop will he turn to look. And while he's looking, he's holding his posture, his spine angle, and the finishing position of his putter. He has not recoiled that putter back. So he's putting, holding his finish, and then look. Putt, hold, look is one of the most important fundamentals of a good putter. And I'm going to do a review of your putting fundamentals. In your setup for the first putt you did in the session, you had placed a large majority of your weight on your left foot. Now the basic fundamental would be to have your weight more evenly distributed. But later in the session, on your own, you began to widen your stance a little and hit putts with a more centered setup, which will give you a more stable and consistent putting stroke. On the left was your setup with your weight on your left, and on the right is your centered setup. I've drawn an arrow down from your nose, and you can see that on the right, your eyes are in the center of your stance. I recommend you work towards getting comfortable with always setting up more centered. As we watch your backswing, you don't have any sway, which is very good. Also, you take the putter back without being wristy, which is a correct fundamental. The fact that you have a unique grip does not prevent you from achieving the fundamental of having a non-wristy stroke. The grip is not the fundamental. The fundamental is having a non-wristy putting stroke. You have taken the putter back with both hands, and the length of your backswing is just outside your back foot. Your follow through is a little longer than your backswing, which is an indication that you have a smooth acceleration through the ball. Very good. One of the great things you do, which most amateurs don't do, is you keep your eyes down during the entire stroke and don't take an early peek at the ball, rolling as soon as you hit it. This is your best putting fundamental. Now I want to add to that fundamental that after completing the stroke, you hold the final pose of the stroke when you turn your head to look. Good putters will hold their posture, hold their spine angle, and hold the putter's position without a recoil. Your tendency is, as soon as you reach the end of your follow through, you instantly stand up and recoil the putter. To become the best putter you can be requires the building in your stroke a brief moment or two where you are still and have a quiet reflection on the feeling of the force you used on that stroke. This moment needs to have no distraction of the visual side of the ball rolling towards the hole. You need to feel the putt before you see the putt. Being a good putter requires the building of a strong memory library of the feeling of the putt. This is called a cluster. What I want you to do, I don't have a problem with your split hand at all. What I want you to do is to take a practice stroke. Whatever that felt like, try to copy it. Whatever that felt like, try to copy it. One of the fundamentals that you will see all of the top putters use is putt, hold, look. What they will do is they will set up, they'll take some practice swing. They may even look at the hole while they're practicing, but they're trying to get a feeling of how much force they should have for this distance. What I want you to do is hit the ball, hold your finish for a moment or two, and then look. And while you're looking, don't recoil the ball. You have a tendency to hit and recoil.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to
so keep it
hit
out there
through and then look and hold it there. So you're going to putt and you're going to hold your finish before you look, and then you look. And while you're looking, you're going to hold your posture and your position. Putt, hold, and keep holding when you're looking. Keep holding when you look. There you go. This is you after we worked on this fundamental of holding the finish while you look. Very, very good. Putt, hold, look. Very good.
Wow.
I'm going to compare your chipping technique to several pros, but I'm going to start with Jim Furyk, who is known to have one of the best short games. All of the pros will demonstrate the same basic fundamentals of good chipping. But before I go over the fundamentals, you first need to understand that fundamentals are a means to an end. Like any shot in golf, the ball only responds to the laws of physics and geometry. You deliver to the ball with the club. When you hit a chip shot well, you would have hit the ball solid. The ball would have come off the face of the club at the trajectory and direction you wanted. The ball would have the amount of spin you anticipated. It would have carried the distance you wanted, and it would have had the amount of ball speed you intended. There are several ways you could set up or move that would produce the above results occasionally, but if you want to hit consistent chip shots, you need to adopt all of the fundamentals. To hit a chip shot solid, you must hit the ball first and then the ground. That means the club must hit the ball on the downswing. That means the low point of your swing arc must be in front of the ball and not behind the ball. Several of the chipping fundamentals are designed to accomplish this. You must have more weight on your front foot than your back foot. The low point of your swing arc tends to be positioned where the center of your weight is. If your ball position is in the center of your stance or towards your back foot, by putting your weight on your left foot or your front foot, will automatically shift the low point towards the left foot and in front of the ball. You also want to have your hand slightly in front of the ball to create a little shaft lean, which also helps position the low point of the swing in front of the ball. Now that you have set up to facilitate hitting the ball solid, you also want to be able to do this consistently. To increase your consistency, you want to choke down the club an inch or two. This shortens the club and allows you to stand slightly closer to the ball and give you more control of the club. Also, it positions the shaft more vertical, which allows for the swing to feel more like a good connected putting stroke. Also, it lifts the heel off the turf a little, which helps prevent it from catching the turf before hitting the ball. You'll see pros choke down different amounts. Jim chokes down quite a bit. Choking down is the fundamental, not how much you choke down. Through trial and error, you will find the right amount you should choke down to give you the consistency you want. Now let's look at Jim's swinging technique for this chip shot. I've drawn a blue line right off his left shoulder. Setting up with your weight on your front foot positions the low point of the arc in front of the ball. Well, that doesn't mean much if in the backswing you shift to the back foot. That would cause your low point to shift towards the back foot as well. During the backswing, Jim keeps his weight on his front foot. You can see that his shoulder stays on that blue line. As Jim swings, you will see a very connected one-piece move. His arms and club move together without any hinging. Chip shots are hit with a lot of fundamentals that you would have when you putt. Also notice the handle between the arms in the blue circle at the beginning of the swing and at the end of the swing. No cupping of the left wrist or flipping of the club through the ball. And the final fundamental I want to talk about, I consider one of the most important. You must swing your chest and head towards the target through impact to the finish. I've drawn a triangle with the shoulders and arms and with the hands starting in front of the chest. Notice that the hands stay in front of the chest throughout the swing. The chest is the engine of the chip shot. The hands are just passengers along for the ride. Watch Jim's hat as it immediately turns with the club towards the target and doesn't stay fixed to the ground through impact. With full shots, you want to keep your head down until your right arm is parallel to the ground, but not with your short game shots. You must learn to swing the head with the club. Also notice how long Jim holds the finish. He holds that club in that follow-through position for a long time. There's no recoil of pulling the club back. He chips, he holds his finish, his posture, and his spine angle. Chip and hold. Tiger. Luke Donald. Steve Stricker. Rory McIlroy. If you want to play more like the pros, you have to look more like the pros. Now, one small little thing that you could start slowly working on, you mentioned you occasionally will blade the ball, skull it over the green. You might even sometimes
or
hit
short,
behind,
or short,
you'll kind of what we call a chili dip.
Right.
The unquestionable fundamental of this is that a golf swing is a circle, and the club will go down, 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 and at some point it reaches its very lowest point, and then it goes up, 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 up. When you skull the ball, that means you had your low point behind the golf ball, and so your club actually reached.
Coming up.
Your club reached its lowest point before it got there, and then it came up into it.
That makes sense.
So what all the pros do when they're chipping is that they control the location of their low point, and the low point of the swing is always in front of the ball.
Ooh.
And the way they achieve that is two things they do. One is they get their feet very close together, and they put more weight on their left foot than their right foot. So their center of gravity, that shifts their circle here, which shifts their low point to the front. So I don't want you to be evenly balanced on these chip shots, because when you're evenly balanced, your low point's going to be back here.
So you want me forward?
I want you to preset, almost like you're leaning against a wall right here. So you're going to preset and stay there. You're going to stay on. I have more weight on my left foot even in my backswing. So I'm not rocking with my chip. You want a stable axis golf swing. You want a very stable circle. You don't want a circle that's moving on you, or you're going to be very inconsistent. So I just want you to, your way you move around your circle is fine. I like it. It's just you don't stabilize your circle. So I want you to set up, presetting the circle a little bit more to the left, and then just stay. You're going to rotate around that axis, and you're not going to let that axis move. So let's say
you're saying from driver to chipping.
Chipping. Well,
I am not rotating.
That's correct. But you also sometimes you sway a little bit.
To make up for the no rotation,
well,
right?
the only problem with your chipping is your starting setup. You set up with, I'd like your feet just to be a fraction closer. That makes it easier to get on the lift. Because if I start here and then as I start to move this foot away, it starts pulling my circle to the right.
Oh, okay.
So it's easier to get on your left foot if this foot is closer to you.
On the left was before we made any changes in your chipping technique, and on the right was after we worked on starting with more weight on your left side. In this comparison, you were actually doing the setup drill with the back foot on the toe and not with the back foot flat. I framed your head down to the ground, and you can see how on the right you are starting with more weight on your left side. As you take the club back, you keep your swing circle still and stable, keeping the low point of your swing in front of the ball, and you finish with your weight on your left side. Before you made these changes, you started with your weight closer to the center of your stance, and you had a tendency to fall back into your back foot during the forward swing. You can see how at the end of the swing, you have more weight on your back foot.
Like that. Oh yeah, you're just starting to be a nice little pattern. Oh, you're master. These are all nice and sound.